Hey, Indian Creek 8th grade students, it's Professor Blazek, and I'm back with the second video in our reading companion series on Stave 3 of A Christmas Carol, where we're going to look at some of the important passages that come up in this third stave. So the first set of passages I want to look at regard the ghost of Christmas present, because this is obviously the spirit that is leading Scrooge through all of the images that he's going to see in this stave. Now, if we go over here to the story and you look towards the bottom of page 20 and the top of page 21, we see that when we first meet this ghost of Christmas present, he is in a room in Scrooge's dwelling, and he just has this throne and all these decorations that are just all of the things that have to do with Christmas. So it talks about how the walls and ceiling were hung with living green, from berries to holly and mistletoe, and that the spirit is sitting on a kind of throne made from turkeys and geese and poultry and sausages, plum puddings, oysters, chestnuts, all of these wonderful food items that compose this throne that the spirit is sitting upon. And we meet the spirit who is holding this golden torch, and he asks Scrooge to come in and know me better, man. And Scrooge comes in, he approaches this spirit, and he really is just this big, boisterous giant. He has got this wonderful green robe, and he just has a cheery voice and this joyful air, and just sort of everything about the spirit correlates directly to this celebration of Christmas. And so the spirit obviously is representative of exactly that, this idea of celebration, of community, of goodwill. And he takes Scrooge out and has many, many things to show him. If we come on down here, we can see that in the middle highlighted section on this page, we see that the spirit can sprinkle this enchanted water from his torch onto anybody who is in a bad mood or quarreling on Christmas Day, because it would be such a shame to quarrel on Christmas Day, and it immediately brings them back into the right state of mind of joy and of celebration. And so Scrooge asks the spirit what it is that he is sprinkling from his torch, and Scrooge asks him, would it apply to anybody on this day? And the spirit says it would apply to anybody, but especially to a poor one the most. And when Scrooge asks him why a poor one most, the spirit says, because it needs it most. And so the spirit is obviously just such a positive and caring being, and he just represents this sort of community, this goodwill, this brotherhood between all men and women, where what's most important during the Christmas season is that all people have a good day. They enjoy and celebrate with each other, because in a community, everyone needs to look out for everyone else. So this really is the scene that best drives home the qualities that the ghost of Christmas present really embodies and represents. Now, some other important passages in this stave are obviously looking at changes in Scrooge as he sees these many important images. And so we have come here to page 25, this sort of long highlighted section, after Scrooge and the spirit have watched the Cratchit family Christmas. Scrooge asks the spirit with an interest he had never felt before. He says, tell me if Tiny Tim will live. And the ghost replies that I see a vacant seat in the poor chimney corner, and a crutch without an owner, carefully preserved. If these shadows remain unaltered by the future, the child will die. And Scrooge says, no, no, oh no, kind spirit, say he will be spared. And the spirit just again repeats that if nothing changes in the future, then no other Christmas will find him here. In other words, Tiny Tim will die, and he will die very soon. And then he uses Scrooge's own line against him by saying, well, if he was going to die, he better do it and decrease the surplus population. And these words just have a incredible impact on Scrooge. There is a shame and grief associated with Scrooge's reaction to this, and the ghost goes on to say that, there might be a chance that in the sight of heaven that you yourself are more worthless and less fit to live than millions of others like this poor man's child, and that he embodies so many of the good things, talking about Tiny Tim, that the love and the goodwill and the joy that he brings to the world might be worth far more than all of the money that Scrooge has been able to save up for himself. And there is just this real struggle that Scrooge has with this, and it says that his eyes are trembling, and he immediately looks down sort of in shame and in sadness. And this is just a real eye-opener for Scrooge that, this is someone whose life he directly impacts because he controls Bob Cratchit's salary. So he has control over how much money is going into the Cratchit family and how much they have to support Tiny Tim. And so Scrooge could see himself as directly causing the premature death of this child because of his greed and because of his unwillingness to treat his own father, Bob Cratchit, as anything more than just this poor, pathetic man. Now, one other scene we see a big change in Scrooge in is at the end of the scene where he and the spirit are watching Fred's Christmas party. This is towards the bottom of page 29. There is this highlighted section that just really shows that Scrooge had such a good time, enjoying himself at the party, even though obviously no one else can see or talk to him. But it says that he had become so gay and light of heart that he would have pledged the unconscious company in return and thanked them in an inaudible speech if the ghost had given him time. So Scrooge just really enjoys himself at this party. He begins to see what the celebration of Christmas really means, all of the happiness and joy that can be associated with it. And again, this is just another big change that we have seen in him in these moments in comparison to the beginning of the story, where obviously his reaction to Fred's invitation to dinner and to Christmas in general is just bah humbug. So again, another big change that we have seen in Scrooge. Now, the last set of important passages that I want to look at, really just one passage, is the beings of ignorance and want. And these are two beings that the ghost of Christmas Present carries with him under his robes, and just really, really symbolic and really important to understand as you're reading this stave. And so we are back here at the top of page 30. There's this long highlighted section that begins by saying that from the foldings of its robe, the spirit brought two children, wretched, abject, frightful, hideous, miserable. They knelt down at its feet and clung upon the outside of its garment. And it's a boy and a girl, and they're described as yellow, meager, ragged, scowling, wolfish, but prostrate too in their humility. Where graceful youth should have filled their features out and touched them with its freshest tints, a stale and shriveled hand like that of age had pinched and twisted them and pulled them into shreds. Where angels might have sat enthroned, devils lurked and glared out menacing. No change, no degradation, no perversion of humanity in any grade. Through all the mysteries of wonderful creation, has monsters half so horrible and dread. So Scrooge looks upon these beings and he asks the spirit, are they yours? Because it's all that he can really get out. And the spirit says, they are man's, they're mankind's. He says, and they cling to me, appealing from their fathers. This boy is ignorance, this girl is want. Beware them both and all of their degree, but most of all beware this boy, for on his brow I see that written which is doom, unless the writing be erased. Deny it, cries the Spirit. Slander those who tell it ye. Admit it for your factious purposes and make it worse, and bide the end. And so basically what the Spirit is telling Scrooge, that these two horrible beings, ignorance and want, are clasping on to Christmas. And there is this issue in society that so many people have during Christmas. And obviously the boy, ignorance, representing that so many, like Scrooge himself, are ignorant of both the Christmas holiday and also of the lives of the poor and the many things that they could do to help the poor, such as giving to charity. And then the girl, obviously representing want, is another sinful method of approaching Christmas that mankind has, which is just looking out only for yourself, not caring anything for anybody else, only keeping in mind what your personal thoughts and your personal wants are. And so these are two issues that can obviously come right hand in hand with the Christmas holidays for those people who don't treat it the way that it should be treated. And this is just a really symbolic message of just how ugly the faults of ignorance and want can make people into, because these children are just so depraved and so just disgusting and horrible that it really shows just how bad the sins of ignorance and want can be, obviously both of which Scrooge is incredibly, incredibly guilty of. So just a really symbolic ending towards a stave and a really important passage to understand. So that's it for Stave 3, the important passages. We've looked at the Ghost of Christmas Past, the Ghost of Christmas Present. We've got one more spirit yet to come in Stave 4. I will be back soon with those videos. And until then, this has been Professor Blazek signing off.